There's a couple brand new gaming news stories we need to talk about today, starting with a franchise that is very near and dear to my heart that I have a ton of nostalgia for. We are talking about the Tony Hawk series of video games, getting some very unfortunate news for what otherwise would have been a very hyped remake. Then the big talking point for today's video has to do with the ongoing Nintendo Direct talk online, as we know to expect Xenoblade Direct tomorrow, and it begs the question, will we get a mainline presentation to follow it up the following week? And there is some brand new information that just appeared online that we have to break down and go over and suggest, is next week indeed the week to expect Nintendo to officially announce their mainline summer 2022 direct presentation. What's up, nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. And as I mentioned, guys, we got a couple different massive stories to unpack today, and we have to kick it off with a conversation around the Tony Hawk series of video games, as this is one that I grew up playing religiously. If you were a 90s kid, even if you weren't a skater yourself, you probably knew friends that always had their skateboards with them. I was one of those kids from about the ages of 7 to 14, and when I wasn't outside actually doing skateboarding, I was inside playing the Tony Hawk series of video games, and I just have so many fond memories of this entire franchise. And while we recently got the re-release and remake of Tony Hawk 1+2 Pro Skater, which to be honest are probably some of the best reimaginings of those classic games that we've seen over all these years, as there's definitely been some missteps in Tony Hawk series later on into the history of the franchise, but 1+2 remake, being in a single disc, single package, sold very well, had all of the nostalgia factors there, had amazing support for throwback soundtrack portions of the game, next level mechanics when it comes to the combo system and stringing tricks together, and just an overall outright fun experience with the classic challenges intact that if you grew up playing those games, you probably really thoroughly enjoyed 1+2 remake at release. And the reason Tony Hawk is in the news and in the headlines today is because apparently there was actually plans and talks to remake 3+4 next. However, it is sounding like the project has been entirely scrapped due to some bad news that we did talk about on the channel, being that Vicarious Vision was absolved into Activision Blizzard, and there may be a glimmer of hope for these games to surface in the future that we will cover after this. But we do need to quickly get on the same page with what exactly has been said and been claimed here around Tony Hawk's 3+4 remake. So let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through their detailed typed up article together. Tony Hawk says Activision scrapped a 3+4 remake following Vicarious Vision's merger. The veteran developer was officially folded into Blizzard earlier this year. That's according to the pro skater himself, who claimed during a live stream on Monday that Activision had briefly taken pitches from other studios, but allegedly wasn't happy with any of them. That was the plan even up until the release date of 1 and 2, Hawk said. We were doing 3 and 4, and then Vicarious Visions got kind of absorbed and they were looking for other developers, and then it was over. He added, the truth of it is Activision were trying to find somebody to do 3 and 4, but they just didn't really trust anyone the way they did Vicarious. So they took other pitches from other studios, like what would you do with the Tony Hawk Pro Skater title, and they didn't like anything they heard, and then that was it. Who knows, maybe when the dust settles we'll figure it out. You never know. I never would have thought we were going to do 1 and 2 20 years later. So I read this and I'm just immediately upset knowing that it was pitched and in plan to actually have 3+4 remake put out there on retail shelves, which arguably 3 is maybe the pinnacle of the series, 4 just as enjoyable. It's hard for me to pick a favorite because I even really enjoyed Underground 1, Underground 2, and then into like American Wasteland is kind of where I started to get out of the series. I still enjoyed the story of Underground 2, but that was the last one I played 100% to completion and really enjoyed through and through. But 3 and 4 is the height of the franchise. I think probably 2 through 4 has some of the most lengthy gameplay hours that I've ever spent in the Tony Hawk franchise, and I would love to re-experience these titles with the modern visuals that we saw with the 1+2 remake, and you had the perfect studio in place to do it. Vicarious Visions clearly knew what they were doing with the direction of this franchise, and you fold them into a Blizzard support team. You take away the ability for them to be their own mainline studio, and we don't get this quality project that we otherwise could be enjoying in the near future, and that is very disheartening to me. I would have absolutely been a day one purchaser of this remake, and I am hopeful that while this is all bad news on the surface right now, that as Microsoft gets into the Activision Blizzard side of things and that merger is expected to close later on in 2023, that we actually do have direct comments from Phil Spencer himself referencing that he wants to bring back old forgotten franchises and give Activision Blizzard new branches of support that they need to work on projects like that, as clearly that is not there in the current focus with Activision Blizzard, as they're really doubling down on their big cash cow moneymakers like the Call of Duty franchise, Warzone of course being a massive revenue driver and a games as a service style game, and then you have things like Blizzard putting out Diablo Immortals, which is obviously one of the biggest cash grabs that has been known in the modern gaming gacha game type of service era. So whether or not we see that direction kind of change when Phil Spencer gets involved and give him some support to actually maybe reform Vicarious Visions and work on these projects that we all would love to see come to light. He even mentioned bringing back the Guitar Hero franchise. Like, yes, please. It is kind of crazy to think how monumental these games were in culture period at one point in time, and then you fast forward 10, 15 years down the line and you don't see a single release for any of them. Now granted, yes, Tony Hawk and Guitar Hero definitely went through their missteps in games, as I think they were kind of flooding the market at one point, especially Guitar Hero. It was like every 6 months there was a new iteration or band collaboration out, and you had Rock Band pumping out games at the same time. Was there oversaturation and did they flood the market? Absolutely, but then you just kind of give up on the games altogether after some of those missteps, and I think that we need to see them brought back in the modern era, and I think that the fans like me that grew up with them are ready to experience new iterations or even just classic remakes at this point on our current generation consoles. So let's hope the future of long forgotten franchises is bright, being the Tony Hawks and Guitar Heroes of the world. Those are definitely titles that I would absolutely pick up a day one re-release of if they ever do come back to market. I want to hear from you guys, all your thoughts and nostalgia around the Tony Hawk franchise specifically. What were some of your favorite games in the franchise that you have nostalgia for, that you grew up playing? Which ones do you most want to see re-released? Are you like me and you're very upset that this 3+4 remaster or remake would have been out probably in a relatively short turnaround time and is now ultimately scrapped for the time being? Do you think anything changes once Microsoft completes their Activision Blizzard merger and that they actually do kind of restructure the company and go in directions that will allow them to bring back these games? Or do you think this was one of those cultural phenomenons that once upon a time was a very big hit, but we may not ever see them come back in the future? So please share all your thoughts and feelings and nostalgia on the Tony Hawk franchise and the Guitar Hero franchise, and whether or not you want to see them brought back for current generation consoles in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today is more mounting evidence that does suggest that next week should be the week that Nintendo fans can look forward to for an official announcement from Nintendo on a mainline direct presentation, as clearly, if you are a Xenoblade Chronicles fan, you were probably extremely hyped for tomorrow's direct, and I will definitely be watching to see what kind of new gameplay modes are unveiled and what kind of things are featured at this 20-minute presentation. However, if you are a fan of other franchises, you know that the E3 time Nintendo Direct is always the blowout event with some of the biggest new hype game reveals and announcements period for the year, and you're probably very worried that Nintendo may skip up this summer presentation altogether in light of the announcement of the Xenoblade Chronicles Direct, because it's like, would they really do a game focused direct and then the following week put out a mainline direct? That doesn't seem like what they've done in history. And the thing about Nintendo is you cannot ever predict fully what they have planned, as they are literally the most unpredictable company out there, which is also why they're a lot of fun to talk about. But to quickly give you guys a brief history of why these dates and expectations have changed, and then to cover the brand new evidence that's popped up online today, we have to talk about the week of June 14th through the 16th, as that was the most likely dates that were first put out there and claimed online. Now, this wasn't necessarily from leakers, but rather a content creator that decided to leak out an email that they had received for an embargo lift on a game that happened on June 16th. It was one that was previously featured at a Nintendo Direct, so they went on Reddit claiming that yes, to them they are confirmed that there is a direct taking place, because not only do they have this company email that they should not have shared that they did anyway, but also they have other NDAs signed for games that also get launched that same day, and they know that that's got to be correlating with the Nintendo Direct. So of course you have fans hype and anticipation through the roof, and that's going to be the week that we see it. Well, then Summer Game Fest hits and we get Neon White, which was the game in question for the embargo on the 16th listed, featured at that event with that exact launch date, meaning the email, yes, indeed was legit, but that was not pointing towards a direct. We also got the surprise announce date of TMNT Shredder's Revenge, which by the way is a fantastic freaking game. If you are not playing that right now, like, stop what you're doing, go to the eShop and download it. It's ridiculously fun. Literally the perfect modern era arcade beat 'em up style game. It doesn't get any better than that. Just go buy it. But with those two games being revealed for a June 16th launch, it then looked like, okay, well, no, that's not referencing a direct at all. And of course, we now know for certain it wasn't. Then you had people like Nate Drake or Nate the Hate Online saying that patience is going to be the key for the direct and it would likely come later in the month of June. And then well-known industry veteran Alana Purist said on a live stream, looked at her notes and confirmed that yes, June 29th, that's the date that Nintendo will be holding their mainline direct presentation. But when you got this announcement for the Xenoblade Direct just yesterday, all of that came back into question for a lot of fans, which I don't know why that is the case. I don't think you should take the fact that they're doing a Xenoblade Game Focus Direct a week before a mainline direct as the confirmation that they're not going to do a mainline direct, but to further add in more evidence besides all of those existing stories that have been going around online. There's actually one account that's been spotted. It is anonymous. It does come from 4chan, which many people will just say, well, I'm not going to pay any attention to this. However, they correctly predicted the date and time of the Xenoblade Direct announcement before it was officially announced from Nintendo themselves, several hours before, in fact, and the exact, not only the date, but also like the exact length of the event being 20 minutes. So you can see the following posted up over on our Gaming Leaks and Rumors, where it says, post said Xenoblade Direct was coming several hours before announcement. Says the Direct is still happening next week. I know it's 4chan, but I thought it was interesting. Someone on 4chan who claims to have leaks on Xenoblade 3 accurately predicted that a Xenoblade 3 Direct would be announced today, several hours before it was announced. They even predicted it being 20 minutes long. They say in their post that a Direct is still happening next week and that Xenoblade will not be a focus and will only receive a final story trailer. You can then see the exact anonymous user post where it says, Twitter post by Nintendo today announcing a 20-minute Xenoblade 3 Direct for Wednesday. Game won't appear in the actual Direct next week except for a final story trailer. Now, clearly, one problem with leaks and rumors online is that it gives people clout and some kind of elevated presence, if you will. So a lot of people chase it, and they're not really leakers or insiders, but they pose to be online to gain a following. And while this is not that, because it's just a straight up anonymous post on 4chan, it's also sometimes, while you do get a lot of BS on 4chan, you also get people who aren't trying to actually gain that status and create a Twitter account with a large following and get a bunch of people bought into them, but rather just somebody who does have inside information, and occasionally you get those big details that are later on confirmed to be correct. And in this case, it's either an extremely lucky guess that hours before Nintendo announced that Xenoblade Direct that nobody really saw coming made this post to 4chan with the exact date and the exact time of the presentation, or this is indeed another person with some kind of inside connections that does know that no, it's not just the only Direct that we can expect this month, and that we will be getting that full mainline June Direct the week after. And that's where I'm putting my chips on. That's what, if I'm a betting man, I believe that that is the week that we can now look forward to. I don't think Nintendo slides into July, because then we're getting close to that September timeframe that we know to expect another Direct. Yes, it is the same week of the investors meeting. That is an interesting stat that hasn't happened before, but Nintendo is known for doing unpredictable things, and we have seen Nintendo do weird things in the past at Direct presentations where they announce another Direct for like the week after or a couple weeks after, however long that was. They did that with the Animal Crossing announcement in a mainline Direct where they said, hey, next week tune in and you'll be able to watch the Animal Crossing event that's going to take place shortly after. It's like, okay, maybe they're just kind of doing that in reverse with the Xenoblade 3 Direct, and they want to have that game focused on in a big way for marketing reasons and all of the details revealed, but they don't want to overly crowd what would normally be a 40-minute presentation, which only means that we should be seeing a lot of new hype announcements for games that aren't already fully detailed on Nintendo's roadmap. So that's my mindset with everything. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, both the different stories we talked about today. Are you hyped for Tony Hawk potentially getting remakes later on? Are you disappointed that 3+4 remake is not happening anytime soon? And are you ready to see franchises like Tony Hawk and Guitar Hero come back to modern day consoles? And then definitely share with me where you land on this entire Nintendo Direct issue. Do you think that the Xenoblade Direct is all we're getting and that all of these inside insiders and the leaks floating around online are just flat out wrong with no real information, or you like me and you do think that next week logically makes the most sense for Nintendo to actually put on this presentation, and that they are clearing some space so that way they can have a clear, concise, almost 40 minute or so direct packed with brand new game announcements from hopefully series that we are all very hyped to see revealed to us. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we break down the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 direct announcement and talk about the entire history of direct leaks up to that point in time. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.